Hello, one and all, and welcome back, yes, back, to the Great Unknown Audio Show with me, your illustrious host and most appropriate face for radio, Maxim Jennings. And here we are, day 3 of this 21-day Western Australian road trip extravaganza. We're coming to the end of our day, so I thought I'd put it into perspective and do a little review of what I've been doing. So let's start with last night. When I left you, I was very much in a complaining, moaning, slightly negative frame of mind. And unfortunately that only got worsened by the fact that the gravelated road, the one that had all the humps in it, well, that turned out to be quite a large proportion of my journey to Hyden, my 4-hour journey to Hyden. And for 50 kilometres, those roads were pretty severe, and I was going a maximum of 40 kilometres an hour, just banging, crashing against the dirt, and just bang, 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 getting pretty annoyed, because at some points I couldn't even go over 20 because it was making so much noise, and it became a real annoyance that we had to just slow it down, which is incredibly annoying. But hey ho, these things happen. We got through it without ripping my hair out too much, which is always important. And then, well, we had to kind of drive in the dark for a while because we'd left Cape Ann car park not as late as I thought we would, but still pretty late, and so for a good hour and a half, the end proportion, we had to drive in the dark. And so you have to then think about obstacles that you wouldn't usually in the UK, such as kangaroos, wallabies, rabbits, other wildlife that are nocturnal and come out at dusk. So that was another thing to take into consideration when driving. That also means you have to drive slower. And then upon arrival to my campsite in Hyden, it was a pretty desolate place, just a mere toilet. At least it was in good and sanitary conditions, but yeah, it wasn't the greatest of campsites, kind of in the middle of nowhere. At Wave Rock Short Stay, I'd stayed there for one particular purpose, which was to go and visit Wave Rock in the next morning. And so, sleep on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say, to be fair, it was my best sleep so far in a tent, just because we were inland a bit, which meant it was always going to be a bit warmer. You didn't have the coastal winds that you had to kind of battle with. But yeah, by far the best sleep. The liner and the sleeping bag really doing wonders for me there. So I woke up the next morning after having my dinner in the car, which had got really disgustingly dirty in an orangey clay colour. So we had to unfortunately kind of stand and eat dinner, which wasn't great because well, it was getting a bit dark and the flies were very active. So it meant that I was constantly wafting my hands whilst trying to eat and hoping that no flies were going to ruin my food. But all things taken into consideration, the tuna and sardines with the 2 slices of bread and the remainder of the raw cauliflower hit the spot, and I was ready to go to bed and watch my film of choice, which was 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, with Frances Nomad, who is a unbelievable actress. She has 2 Oscars to her name, I believe. But I watched her in Fargo a few days before, and then had to watch this one because it was also directed by Martin McDonagh, who is most recently last year's Oscar winner for The Banshees of Inisherin, Best Picture, and he's also director of some of my favourite films, such as In Bruges and The Guard, 2 Irish films with the classic trio, with 2 really renowned Irish actors in Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell. but they weren't in this one. This was a full American cast, pretty southern accents. It was very enjoyable. So a good watch, which definitely helped my sleep. And then I woke up to be joined by quite a strong heat, just really sticky, not ideal. At 7:30 in the morning, the sun kind of radiating down on my tent, meaning that as soon as you kind of wake up, yeah, you got to get up, you got to get out, and you got to get packed. And I was trying to do that all as quickly as possible, but I was joined by a complete infestation of flies, and that was not fun. That really, I wouldn't say that I'm a morning or evening person, either or, but that really ruined my morning, seeing my arch nemesis again. And we'll get a bit more into the flies as we continue reviewing this day, but yeah, so I packed up pretty quickly. The tent folding capabilities weren't at their finest in the morning, as I was really in a quest against time. Still hadn't managed to have a shower, as the campground I thought had a shower, but it didn't. So we were feeling a bit dirty and a bit disgusting. So all the more for haste and to get on the road and get in the AC of the car and really transfer my smell from the tent to the car, which is not ideal, but some things have to be done for my own contentness, shall we say. So thankfully about the location, Wave Rock, we were only 5 minutes away from what we wanted to see and why we were in Hyden. No one would have heard of Hyden for good reason, because there's nothing there apart from 2 petrol stations, one of those being a lorry only petrol station with not even a person to guard it. So yeah, I'm not going back there, no chance at all. Too hot, too sticky, too many flies. But we went to Wave Rock, which is absolutely grand, a lovely piece of archaeology. Kind of does what it says in the tin. It's a rock that's about 15 meters high, and it has a little curve. It has quite a gradual curve in it. It goes for about 180 meters in diameter, width, shall we say, and it's really cool. You can kind of partially climb up the rock from the inside, but you can also climb up it to the top. They've made that doable, so you can see the view of Hyden, which is really nothing to behold. So I spent a good 45 minutes there, paid £6 to park there, which is a rip-off really, considering I was only there for an hour. Like if I was at Fleet car park in the one behind Sainsbury's, I would have paid 20p for half an hour, and that would have been me done. But because I paid the £6, I stayed there longer than I should have done. But hey ho, that's what it is. We then stopped and got petrol, and you're thinking, oh God, what are you talking about? Why no one cares that you got petrol? Well, after I got petrol the first time, I'd observed the fact that pretty much every petrol station where there's a little kiosk, it's pretty much a fish and chip shop as well. So every petrol station is a stop to try and get hot food. And I didn't at the first place I stopped, but I had a 4.5 hour drive to Cape Le Grand National Park, which is where just outside of Esperance. So I knew I was going to be stopping again, and just as like a little foot brake for my feet that were really working hard during cruise control. But we had to stop because the car keeps telling you to take a break. I've been driving for too long, that kind of thing. So I was really doing it for the car rather than myself. But anyway, we took a break when we tried the hot chips. I did get a meat pie as well, because they said their meat pies were extraordinary. Probably a bit too much, quite calorific, and I think I got a bit of heartburn after it. But the chips were pretty good. The hot chips, for a petrol station hot chips, they were not bad at all. So I've had my taste, even though I said I was going to be trying to not eat bad food and drink alcohol. But well, you probably learn never to believe anything that I say on the first time I say it. But yeah, they were good chips, and really spurred me along to keep going on my drive down to Lucky Bay, which really has been the highlight of this trip so far. Just because, like I mentioned, we was in Cape Le Grand National Park. I think that's how they would say it, or Cape Le Grand as a classic English person would say it. But yeah, it really was fantastic. A lovely little bay. The campsite was absolutely rammed. Most people I've seen since being in Western Australia. I got the last pitched up reservation available for a tenner. They had showers, fantastic. Barbecue set up, hobs, had everything you needed. It was brilliant. And alongside that was one of the most beautiful white sand beaches I've ever seen. The water was absolutely gorgeous, a really calm tide, and in the background were a series of different mountains. And then I got there just in time to watch the sunset. Not that I could really see the sun from where we were, but to see it reflect on the sky behind was a delight. Absolutely beautiful. So really fantastic. Managed to see some people who'd driven their 4x4s onto the beach, and then watched a group of 4 young people whiz past me as I'm taking my bay walk, and get to the point where they realise that the tide's actually coming in pretty quick. I was just about to turn around, and then they try and turn, and they get stuck in the sand. And so I'm caught in 2 minds, because they're about 150 metres away from me, and I'm about 1 kilometre away from the entry point to the beach. So I'm thinking, do I go and help and be another pair of useless hands, or do I just stand there, watch them, dig the sand up, and hopefully they get their tyres away? Or do I turn around, walk back, and try and contact someone to see if the ranger's about, so that the car doesn't get absolutely lost at sea if they can't get out? And so I went for the latter option, and decided that going to find help rather than trying to help myself was probably the best port of call, considering I probably would be no help whatsoever. So I started doing that, and then I could hear the car rev up again, and then they drove past me again, quite embarrassedly. I'd be pretty embarrassed if that happened to me. So yeah, that was quite humorous, and I wasn't embarrassed because I wasn't associated with them. And if I had been associated, then I would have been embarrassed. So there's always a reason for these things. But thankfully no one died or the car didn't get lost, which is always important. But that didn't really hinder my experience of Lucky Bay. I was still watching the sunset, and it was marvellous. Pitched my tent up on the sand, and the peg stayed in. Didn't have to worry about the tent flying away. Went to bed at night, all good. And yeah, it was a very enjoyable evening. And that is where I am. I'm going to leave you here now, because I'm just about to enjoy my food. Can have the sea breeze in the background. Not really going to get too cold, probably about 12 degrees. But yeah, once again on the menu, it's tuna and sardines. This time accompanied by a kilogram of carrots. How delightful does that sound? Kilogram of carrots, and probably some bread and almond spread for dessert. Absolutely fantastic. I hope I have as good a sleep as I did last night. Thank you once again for listening, and you'll hear from me in the next one. Goodbye.